My wife told me, "You're just a co-parent, not my true match." So I turned cold, distant, and unavailable. But when she finally saw it, it was already too late. My 10-year marriage didn't die from cheating or money. It ended the exact moment my wife spoke a single sentence, a truth so cold, it shattered my entire world and redefined everything I thought I knew about us. I'd just gotten the kids, Leo and Chloe, settled upstairs, the house finally quiet, and walked downstairs hoping for a moment of connection. But there she was, my wife Sophia, distant, scrolling on her phone, as if I wasn't even in the room. I'm Michael, 34, a business analyst. Up until that night, I honestly thought I had a solid life with Sophia and our 2 kids. But God, was I wrong about everything? Sophia and I met in college. I was this quiet finance major, she was a vibrant progressive studies student, always talking about empowerment, about shattering norms. Honestly, I fell hard. She radiated passion, while I just wanted a stable future. We got married right after graduation. I climbed the corporate ladder, pulling 50, 60-hour weeks. All for us, for the life I wanted to build. Sophia, though, bounced from job to job. Marketing, graphic design, nonprofit, nothing ever stuck. After Chloe was born, she decided to stay home, starting a blog about female empowerment. I supported it, thinking if it made her happy, it was worth it. But the blog never made a dime. And somehow, I became responsible for literally everything. The mortgage, the bills, groceries, kids' activities, their homework, doctor appointments, even cooking dinner most nights. Sophia was always glued to her laptop, crafting content that probably 12 people read. I'm not trying to be bitter, but you need to understand the situation. I ran on empty for years. I'd come home from my demanding job, only to start a second shift as the primary parent. Meanwhile, Sophia was in her home office, talking about authenticity and finding herself. I kept telling myself it was temporary. She'd find her thing, and we'd be partners again, like we used to be. So, fast forward to that Tuesday night. I'd just gotten Leo to bed after 2 hours of math homework, then made sure Chloe practiced her violin. I came downstairs, hoping Sophia and I could just watch a show, talk, anything that felt like being a couple. But she was on the couch, scrolling, that distant look she'd worn for months plastered on her face. I sat down, tried to suggest a date night, a weekend trip, anything to reconnect. She didn't even look up, just kept scrolling. When I asked if everything was okay, she finally put the phone down. And looked at me. With eyes I'd never seen before, cold and flat. That's when she said it. Straight up. No hesitation. "You're not really my match, Michael. You're nothing more than a co-parent, not my real partner." I swear, the air left the room. I just sat there, frozen. What do you even say to that? How do you respond when your wife of 10 years tells you you're just a roommate who helps with the kids? She kept going, too. Launched into this monologue about how she'd grown spiritually and intellectually, how I'd stayed the same. How I never engaged her in deep conversations about philosophy or art or social issues. How I was just this stable, boring presence who paid the bills but didn't stimulate her mind. And I'm sitting there, thinking about the 60-hour work weeks. Every diaper I changed. Every parent-teacher conference I attended alone because she was too busy finding herself. All the times I asked about her day and got one-word answers while she was glued to her phone. I didn't yell. Didn't argue. Didn't try to defend myself. I just said, "Okay," and walked upstairs to our bedroom. Except I didn't sleep. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, replaying our entire relationship like some horrible movie, seeing all the signs I'd missed or ignored. All the time she checked out emotionally while I kept trying to hold everything together. Around 3 in the morning, something shifted. I had this moment of absolute clarity. She was right about one thing. I wasn't her partner. But not because I'd failed. It was because she'd never really wanted a partner in the first place. She wanted an audience, a supporter, a provider. Someone to handle all the boring adult stuff while she pursued her eternal journey of self-discovery. And I'd been playing that role perfectly for years, thinking it would eventually pay off. Thinking she'd eventually appreciate what I was doing. But here's what truly hit me during that sleepless night: she'd emotionally divorced me years ago, probably around the time Chloe was born. She just kept me around because I was useful, because I made her life possible. And that comment about being just a co-parent wasn't some heat-of-the-moment insult. It was how she genuinely saw me. Had probably seen me for years. And I was done. Completely done pretending this was a marriage worth saving. So right there, at 3:17 in the morning, according to my phone, I made a decision that would change everything. If Sophia wanted to see me as nothing more than a co-parent, then that's exactly what I'd become. Not in the way she expected, though. Not the desperate husband trying to win back her affection, but someone completely detached, indifferent, unavailable. The kind of co-parent who shows up for the kids and absolutely nothing else. When I came downstairs the next morning, I was different. I made breakfast for Leo and Chloe. Helped them get ready for school, kissed them goodbye, and walked right past Sophia without a word. Didn't ask if she wanted coffee. Didn't try to make small talk. I just existed in the same space as a functional parent and nothing more. I could see her watching me, confused, probably wondering why I wasn't upset or trying to talk about what she'd said. But I just kept moving through my routine like she was a piece of furniture, polite when necessary, silent otherwise. And for the first time in years, I felt something that wasn't exhaustion or disappointment. I felt power. Because I'd finally stopped playing a game I couldn't win. That morning, I also sent an email to a divorce attorney my friend Daniel had recommended. Just an initial consultation request. Nothing official yet. But I needed to know my options. Needed to understand what leaving would actually look like, especially when it came to Leo and Chloe, because they were the only part of this marriage that mattered anymore. The weirdest part was how easy it felt to detach. I'd spent so long trying to connect with someone who didn't want to be connected that turning it off was almost a relief. Like finally setting down a heavy backpack I'd been carrying up a mountain for a decade. And watching Sophia's face that morning when she realized I wasn't going to chase her or beg for explanation? Man, that was the first time in years I saw actual uncertainty in her eyes. Like maybe she'd miscalculated. Maybe she'd pushed too far. But it was already too late. I'd already made my choice, and she just didn't know it yet. So here's where things get interesting. The next few weeks, I became a completely different person. Not in some dramatic, obvious way, but in this quiet, calculated manner that apparently freaked Sophia out way more than any argument ever could. I kept my promise to myself. I became exactly what she said I was, just a co-parent, nothing more. And let me tell you, the transformation was almost therapeutic, because for the first time in years, I wasn't trying to fix something that was already broken. My daily routine became robotic. I'd wake up at 5:30, hit the gym before work, something I hadn't done in years because I was always too tired from carrying the mental load of the entire household. Suddenly, I had energy again, because I'd stopped wasting it on someone who didn't want it. I started meal prepping on Sundays, just for me and the kids. Healthy stuff. Nothing for Sophia unless she specifically asked. And even then, I'd just tell her where the ingredients were. I dropped the kids at school every morning, picked them up every afternoon, helped with homework, took them to their activities, read bedtime stories, the whole dad thing. But with Sophia, I was a ghost. Present, but not really there. And the crazy part is how quickly she noticed. Within the first week, she started doing these little things to get my attention. She'd wear these low-cut tops around the house, which she never did before. She'd ask me about my day in this overly sweet voice that sounded fake as hell. She'd suggest we watch a movie together, or order takeout from that Italian place we used to love. And every single time, I'd give her the same response, polite but distant. Like talking to a neighbor you don't really know. I met with Eleanor, the attorney, on a Wednesday afternoon. Told work I had a dentist appointment. Eleanor, a professional woman in her 50s, listened to my whole story and basically said I had a strong case for primary custody, given I'd been the primary caregiver for years. But I needed documentation. So I started keeping this detailed log of everything, every school pickup, every meal I made, every doctor appointment I scheduled, every night I helped with homework while Sophia was on her laptop. I also opened a separate bank account she didn't know about, started funneling some of my paycheck there. Nothing crazy, just building a safety net for when the inevitable happened. The second week, Sophia's attempts to reconnect got more desperate. She started asking if I was mad at her, if we could talk about what she'd said. She even apologized in this half-hearted way that felt more like she was testing to see if I'd break. But I just looked at her and said, "There's nothing to talk about. You are honest about how you feel, and I respect that," and walked away. Man, the look on her face was priceless, because she clearly expected me to either blow up or come crawling back. I also started taking better care of myself beyond just the gym. Got a decent haircut instead of the cheap place I'd been going to. Updated my wardrobe with some new shirts and jeans. Nothing fancy, but I looked put together, and I could see Sophia noticing. Could see her watching me when she thought I wasn't looking. And there was something in her eyes I'd never seen before, uncertainty mixed with maybe a little panic. Around week 3, something shifted in her approach. She went from trying to seduce me to trying to start arguments. She'd make little comments about how I was being cold, how I was abandoning our marriage, how I wasn't even trying. And I'd just respond with, "I'm doing exactly what you said I am, being a co-parent." And that line drove her crazy every single time, because she couldn't argue with her own words. The kids noticed, too. Chloe asked me one night why mommy seemed sad all the time. I just told her that grown-ups go through phases and it wasn't her fault. Made sure both kids knew they were loved and safe. And honestly, they seemed happier, because there was no more tension in the house. No more me trying to engage with Sophia while she ignored me. Just calm routine focused on them. I started going out more, too. Not to bars or anything, but I'd take the kids to the park on weekends. We'd go to the movies, the science museum, do all these activities that Sophia used to say were too boring or too mainstream. And we had a blast. And Sophia would be home alone with her laptop and her blog that nobody read. Finally getting the space she always said she wanted, except now she seemed miserable. By week 4, Eleanor had enough documentation to file preliminary papers, but I held off. I wanted to see where this would go. Wanted to see how long Sophia would take to realize what she'd done. And honestly, I was kind of enjoying watching her squirm, which probably makes me sound petty. But after 10 years of being taken for granted, I felt like I'd earned a little pettiness. The breaking point came on a Friday night, about 6 weeks in. I'd just put the kids to bed and was heading to my home office, this little converted spare room where I'd been spending most of my evenings. And Sophia was standing in the hallway, looking like she'd been crying. She started this whole speech about how she didn't mean what she said. How she was just frustrated that night. How she wanted us to work on things, maybe try couples therapy. For a second, I almost felt bad. Almost considered giving her another chance. But then I remembered all those years of me suggesting therapy and her saying we didn't need it. Remembered all those times I tried to talk and she was glued to her phone. Remembered that look in her eyes when she called me nothing more than a co-parent. And I just said, "I appreciate you sharing that, but I think we're past the point of therapy." And went into my office, closing the door. What really sealed the deal happened the following Tuesday. I came home early from work because my afternoon meeting got cancelled, and I heard Sophia on the phone in the kitchen. She didn't know I was there, and she was talking to one of her blogger friends, saying, "I told him that co-parenting to light a fire under him, to make him try harder. I never actually wanted to end things. But now he's completely shut down, and I don't know how to fix it." Hearing that, Hearing her admit it was a manipulation tactic. Some kind of mind game to make me dance harder for her attention. That's when whatever tiny part of me that still cared just died. Like completely flatlined. I walked right past the kitchen without saying a word. Went upstairs, pulled out my laptop, and emailed Eleanor with a simple message: let's move forward with the divorce papers. I want them filed as soon as possible. Because I was done. Not just with Sophia, but with the whole charade of pretending this marriage was salvageable. She'd shown me exactly who she was, and I'd finally listened. And now it was time to show her exactly what consequences looked like when you treat your partner like a disposable resource for a decade. The divorce papers arrived at our house on a Thursday morning about 2 weeks later, delivered by a process server while Sophia was drinking her coffee in the kitchen. And I'll never forget the sound she made when she opened that yellow envelope. Like all the air got sucked out of her lungs at once. I was upstairs getting Leo ready for school when I heard her yell my name. Not angry, but panicked. That high-pitched, desperate tone people use when reality finally hits them in the face. When I came downstairs, she was standing there, holding the papers with shaking hands. Mascara already running down her cheeks, even though it was only 7:30 in the morning. She kept saying, "You can't be serious. We can fix this. Please, Michael, just talk to me." And I calmly took my coffee mug, rinsed it in the sink, and told her my attorney's contact information was on page 3 if she had any questions. Then I took the kids to school like it was any other day. Because for me, it kind of was. I'd already grieved this marriage during those sleepless nights 2 months ago. I'd already processed the end while she was still living in Fantasyland, thinking her manipulation tactics would keep me trapped forever. The next few months were brutal. Not for me, but watching Sophia spiral was almost uncomfortable. She tried everything. Crying, begging, showing up at my office, which was extremely embarrassing. Calling my mother, who thankfully took my side after I explained the whole situation. She even tried using the kids as leverage, saying they needed their parents together. But I'd already documented years of me being the primary parent, so that strategy backfired immediately. Eleanor was a shark of a woman who'd seen cases like mine 100 times. And she built an airtight case showing my involvement in every aspect of the kids' lives. School records with my name on every emergency contact form. Medical records showing I took them to every appointment. Bank statements proving I paid for everything, including Sophia's lifestyle. And the kicker was text messages I'd saved where Sophia would cancel on the kids last minute because she had some blog event or meeting with her influencer friends that never amounted to anything. The court date finally came about 6 months after I filed, which is actually pretty fast. But Eleanor knew how to work the system, given the clear primary caregiver situation. And sitting in that courtroom, watching Sophia's bargain attorney try to argue she deserved equal custody was almost sad, because everyone could see through it. The judge asked her basic questions, like what grade Leo was in and what Chloe's teacher's name was. And Sophia fumbled both answers. Meanwhile, I had a folder with every school project, every report card, every drawing they'd ever made. And the judge's face said everything. The ruling came down hard. I got primary physical custody, with Sophia getting alternating weekends and 1 evening per week for dinner, which meant the kids would be with me about 75% of the time. And then came the financial part, which honestly shocked even me. Sophia hadn't worked a real job in 6 years, and I'd been the sole provider. The judge calculated child support based on imputed income, basically saying Sophia needed to get a job and contribute. So, she ended up owing me $150 a month, which wasn't much, but the principle of it destroyed her. You could see it in her face. The realization that she'd have to actually work and support herself instead of floating through life on someone else's dime. The house was another problem for her. See, we bought it 8 years ago, and even though we were married, it was technically marital property under state law. But I'd been the only one on the mortgage because Sophia's credit was garbage from all her job hopping and failed business ventures. And Eleanor negotiated as part of the settlement that I'd buy out her half at current market value, minus what she would have contributed if she'd actually paid anything, which meant she walked away with about $48,000. Sounds like a lot, but in our area, that's maybe 5 months of rent in a decent apartment. And watching her face when she realized she'd have to move out of the house she'd been treating like her personal spa for years? That was the moment I think she finally understood what she'd lost. Sophia ended up renting this tiny one-bedroom apartment about 20 minutes away. Had to get a job as an administrative assistant at some medical office, making probably a third of what I make. And suddenly her whole aesthetic of being this enlightened, free spirit who was too good for conventional work just evaporated. Because turns out you can't pay rent with blog posts about finding yourself. The kids adjusted surprisingly fast. Leo, who's 9, told me one day that he liked our new routine better because I actually did stuff with them. And Chloe, who's 7, said she felt less stressed because there wasn't always this weird tension in the house anymore. And hearing that from your kids is both validating and heartbreaking because you realize they'd been feeling the dysfunction all along. I ended up buying a smaller house closer to their school. 3 bedrooms, nice yard, walking distance to a park, and we made it our own space. The kids decorated their rooms. We got a dog they'd been asking for that Sophia always said no to because it was too much work. And for the first time in years, I felt like we were actually living instead of just surviving. About 8 months after the divorce was finalized, I started seeing someone. Her name's Rebecca. She's a nurse at the hospital. We met at a coffee shop when she accidentally grabbed my order, and we laughed about it. And she's just normal, you know? She works hard. She's independent. She doesn't need me to validate her entire existence. And when I introduced her to the kids after dating for about 6 months, they actually liked her because she was genuine and interested in their lives. Sophia did not take the news well. Found out through mutual friends apparently. And suddenly I was getting these late-night text messages about how I'd moved on so fast. How I clearly never loved her. How I was replacing their mother. All this projection and manipulation that would have worked on the old me, but now just made me screenshot everything for Eleanor in case Sophia tried something stupid. The texts kept coming though, usually after Sophia had a bad day or a failed date from what I could piece together. Messages like, "Do you ever think about us? About what we had? The kids miss having us together," and my favorite, "I've changed. I see everything clearly now." And every single time, I'd respond with the same line, "We're co-parents." That's what you wanted. That's what we are. And then I'd stop responding, because I'd learned that engaging just fed into her drama. What really got me was about 10 months post-divorce. I picked up the kids from one of Sophia's weekends, and Leo told me they'd spent most of the time watching TV while Sophia was on her phone. And Chloe said Sophia kept talking about being tired and stressed. I realized nothing had actually changed with her. She still wasn't present. Still wasn't engaged. She just lost the safety net that allowed her to coast through life without consequences. The kids started asking to skip some of her weekends, which legally they couldn't decide yet. But I noted every request in my ongoing documentation, because at 12, Leo would be old enough for the court to consider his preference. And I had a feeling I knew which way that would go. Sophia's blogger friends mostly disappeared from her life once she couldn't project this perfect, empowered woman image anymore. Turns out online feminism circles aren't super supportive when you're actually struggling with real-world consequences. And from what I heard through the grapevine, she'd become kind of bitter about the whole situation, blaming me for not trying hard enough rather than accepting she'd nuked her own life with her entitlement and manipulation. These days, life is pretty good. I got a promotion at work because I actually had mental energy to focus on my career again. The kids are thriving, doing great in school. Leo joined soccer, and Chloe started art classes. Rebecca and I are talking about moving in together eventually, but taking it slow because the kids' stability comes first. And I genuinely feel happy, like actually content with my life for the first time in a decade. Last week, Sophia called me late at night. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. She was crying, talking about how hard everything is, how she made mistakes, how she wishes we could try again. And I listened quietly until she finished. And then I said, "Sophia, you told me I was nothing more than a co-parent. You were right. That's exactly what I am. Nothing more." And I hung up. And for the first time since this whole thing started, I didn't feel angry or vindicated or sad. I just felt nothing. Complete indifference. And that's how I knew I'd finally moved on. The irony isn't lost on me. She spent years treating me like I was just a utility, someone to pay bills and watch kids while she pursued her endless journey of self-discovery. And now that's literally all I am to her. A co-parent who shows up for the kids and nothing else. Except now it's on my terms. With my boundaries. In my house. With my life that doesn't include her. And she finally understands what it feels like to be on the outside looking in. To be the one who's just not enough. To be nothing more than a supporting character in someone else's story. What do you think? Did I do the right thing?